welcome to everybody on behalf of the workshop. And can you hear me now? Okay, that's better. Right. Yeah. My task is much easier this morning because our Director General has explained why we're here in great depth, and so I needn't discuss why we're here at all. But I will say now to introduce us to the conversations that we're going to be having. And to some extent, the background. The workshop is now the 6th in a series of activities designed to expand and develop the post-normal conception of science. And I say this without any particular pride of authorship. I share it with Silvio and with all the colleagues who over the years have developed the idea. And now it is the common property of all of us here, I suppose, and many more people outside. Now, if you ask what is post-normal science, I'm not going to discuss that now, but it is a vision of science. Science is not just an abstracted truth machine. It is rather a complex activity with dimensions that are technical, social, cultural, philosophical, if you wish, spiritual. It is deeply embedded in society, and it shares and contributes to society all of its triumphs and also its pathologies. Okay. So the whole idea of science as separate from society, which we, Silvio and I, finally encapsulated in the term normal. We now say, well, if that was normal, we're post-normal. Okay. Now, for us, there's the philosophical point that the crucial organizing concept is quality. And we have moved away from the concept of truth as the organizing principle for science. This move is quite a big philosophical move, which I have to apologize, Silvia and I have never completely worked out. We've talked about quality, but on one occasion I was accused of throwing away truth in science and leaving it open to a sort of Feyerabendian anything goes. And I should really sort that one out. However, we all agree that quality is the key concept at the moment, partly because there is a publicly acknowledged crisis of quality in science. There have been increasing number of reports of low quality, discussions about it. The general public is now rather gradually becoming aware of a problem of quality in science, and this is of great importance for science and for society, and in a way motivates why we're here. And it's useful to remember that in terms of the traditional philosophies of science, the positivist philosophy, rationalism, right on through to the great debates of the 60s, that is Popper and Kuhn, quality was never mentioned. Quality was taken for granted. The problem of quality couldn't even be conceived in the traditional philosophy of science. This is why we have to rethink the philosophy of science and move on. Now, there has been a very strong, healthy, progressive reaction to this problem of quality. It's been publicly recognized for about 10 years. There have been many initiatives from within the scientific community at all levels. Many ideas have been promoted for resolving the crisis. Now, I believe that while all these different initiatives are useful and indeed necessary, individually or even together, they are not sufficient to resolve the crisis. As I say, there's a great discussion of better techniques for measuring quality, for improving the refereeing process, for looking at the social structure of science and changing some of these perverse incentives which force people to do low quality or even dishonest work. And all of these things are good, true, correct, and necessary. The question is, will they add up to solve the problem and to restore a genuine trust in science as the core of our modern civilization? And the answer is, well, I hope so, but I don't count on it. Because there is something else going on in the scientific system which has to be recognized, which I think in the existing discussions focused on mainstream public research science inside academic institutions mainly, they don't capture either the depth of the problem or the potential for the solution. And I believe this workshop here, in all humility, I think is the first public, systematic attempt to look at the problem in the whole. And I say this in all humility, but I think we are here first leading the way to opening a broader and deeper dialogue on the whole issue of quality. Now, as we've spoken of new currents, and I think new currents is the key, as long as we restrict our focus, as most philosophers and social studies people in science have done, to traditional academic public science, then we are not going to completely grasp the problem. There are many new currents which we have hitherto, which we've discussed already here, which need to be recognized because they're growing very quickly. I'll just mention at 3 levels. We have techniques and tools. There is now a revolution going on within science with the new technologies of information, both digital information and biological information, and their coalescence, so that new techniques of great power and for great economy are now coming into use, transforming the practice in ever more fields. They produce what we have sometimes called citizen science or DIY science, as in our previous workshop, so that more and more interesting, powerful science is being done outside the framework of traditional science institutions as understood by the scholars. With this, of course, we then have new social practices and social organizations in science, both within the mainstream and outside. We have the presence of a blogosphere within science, which is a powerful force for policy and also for dialogue and learning. And then, of course, we have new understandings of what science is all about. For me, I think it is partly, since I'm of an older generation, seeing people come along who want to be scientists, but who no longer assume that if they're sufficiently clever, they will get a lifetime middle-class job with a rising salary and doing fun things and helping humanity. Now, science, becoming a scientist is fraught with hardship, insecurity, and all those things. And so the idea of what is science among the rising generation of scientists is very different indeed. So we have these dimensions of change which must influence practice and even change our conception of what are the problems and how we're going to solve them. Now, having said that in a general way, filling in on what our Director General has said, I just want to spend a few minutes on the question of why is this happening here? Here we have a research institution which serves the European Commission on a host of problems from the directly practical through to the strategic. And here we're engaged in what in some ways is a speculative exercise. And why does the European Commission foster this sort of stuff? Much as I think it's wonderful, I'm sure that our Director General can justify it, it is still quite an interesting historical fact that this initiative in the new thinking about science is coming from a state bureaucracy, and worse than that, a European one. Back where I come from, if I say exciting things are happening at the European Commission, they'll look at me. Now, and I think the answers could be partly in the leadership, which the JRC now has in Vladimir Zhucha, and that is never to be underestimated in any way. Without that leadership, this wouldn't be happening. But the leadership, the leadership now can function within a tradition, and this is where I want to become slightly personal, a tradition here at the JRC Ispra. We see the way the tradition works in the fact that Angela Pereira, somewhere, hi there, yeah, has had the resources and collaboration and enthusiasm of colleagues to organize this and to achieve what I think is a work of genius in getting all these different people together into a program which is not really coherent, but really quite exciting. And so, yes, Angela is here on the payroll and doing these great things, having done many such things in the past, including the previous workshops, the various books and everything. So, yes, Angela is here, and in another institution, Angela would not have had a chance to do such great creative work. Also, I shall say part of the intellectual background here is from Andrea Saltelli, who spent years here, and he's the guiding spirit behind this great book. And then, of course, there's Silvio. Where is Silvio? There he is, that's right. Silvio, everyone knows, or should know Silvio, who spent years, really quite a few years, in very patient work laying the foundations for this new understanding. It's been my privilege to be here, I don't know how many times, collaborating with Silvio from his earliest days when, in fact, sort of hardly anyone knew what he was talking about, but he was such a great guy that we'll give him support even though that sounds crazy. And from those inauspicious beginnings, patiently working, convincing people that it is necessary to have a new view, even when this was very, very eccentric almost, and now we find, yes, and Silvio is still there, pounding away, and what the fact that we are here engaged on this program is a tribute to what Silvio has accomplished over the years. So we have a very full agenda. I know that it'll be streamed out, etc., and there will be some permanent record of our work. I think rather than going into any further detail about what we're going to be doing, I'll shut up for once and let us get on, and then Bruno will take over and give us that, I think, very basic understanding of what is happening with science in its relation with society in the terms of expertise. And so thank you very much for being here and for participating, and I'm looking forward to very intensive but very wonderful days. So thanks.